Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. I enjoy your comments and I appreciate you taking your time to comment and share my video with friends and families and like the video. So we can be the voice for the voiceless. Thank you again. So I have some news to share with you. First in a reading, then a couple of videos I shared from other media outlets. Thank you again. August 24, 2021. Here are the news and Concerned Citizens Media comment for today. This one is an issue about Amara and the conflict they have with Command and other minorities, or Amara's expansionist agenda these days. Caught in the crossfire, Ethiopian minority flees to Sudan. And this is reported by Agence France Presse. Dragged into conflict not of their making, members of Ethiopia's Kimant ethnic group say their only choice was fleeing to Sudan, making another bleak choice was marking another bleak turn in a widening war. Houses were burned and people killed by machetes, said a refugee, Emabet Damos, who, like thousands of others, ran from her village last month. We couldn't even take the bodies and bury them, said Mabet. The Qamant have long chafed under the cultural and economic influence of the dominant Amara people and in recent years have called for self-rule. The Amara fighters backed by the government wanted us off our land, 20-year-old Mabet said. They are killing us because we are an ethnic minority. But Amara regional spokesperson Gzacho Mulune squarely denied that members of the Qamant ethnic group were being targeted. Amara leaders say the Qamant's quest for self-rule has largely been stopped by Tigrayan rebels, who they alleged are fighting a proxy war by backing the group. That's the government side claim. Mabet is part of a stream of some 3,000 Qamant refugees who have crossed into Sudan in recent weeks, Sudanese officials said. It's already more than 60,000 Ethiopian refugees crossed into Sudan. Kasau Abe believes the Amaras used Tigray conflict as an excuse to expand their control over other land. So this claim is true. Amaras are expanding to other territories by using the conflict with Tigrayans as an excuse by arming themselves with heavy armaments with the help of the central government in Addis Ababa. They are using this opportunity to expand their territorial, expansionist agenda into Benishangul Gumuz area, into Wallo, Oromo areas, and also in northern Oromo regions. They are fighting with Oromos in those areas. So they have an agenda. They want to expand the Amara region, widen the region's border through by means of using federal money and the local and global contribution for this war, as using it to buy weapons and dismantling others. In another way, they are also asking these people to fight with them, to help them to fight TDF. So they are taking every advantage, but are they gaining? We're gonna see. I don't think they, their interest. We know the expansionist and the monopoly in that country, but so far they are suffering. So far they are suffering. They tried to expand into Oromos. They tried for generations to control command. They tried to belittle the Benishangul residents, even insulting them. So this group are in a very, very dangerous attitude in that country. They want to return the old system, the dominant culture, and I don't think Ethiopians will accept such attitude anymore. That's why now we are having wars everywhere. They want to dismantle the federalists. They want to create their own unitary system in that country, and Abiy is controlled by them and the support. The only big support he has is from Amaras, and the Amaras are taking advantage at this time. They will be successful. That will be remain to be seen. And Imabet said, "We cannot go back. How can we return when this government is still in place?" That's right. She cannot. If she want to return, the Amaras will kill her like others, or maybe torture her, or do whatever they want to do because they have an agenda. The agenda is the dominance, the Amara dominance, the expansionist. And that's why she said, how can we return when this government is in place? Because the central government is led by Amaras, controlled by Amaras, advised by the Amaras. That's why he rejected 60 million Oromos for this purpose. And chaos and the downing of the country into the toilet is happening because he changed everything. And the country is collapsing because of that. Okay. Ethiopia to build local rival to Facebook and other platforms. And this is reported by Reuters. Ethiopia has begun developing its own social media platform to rival Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, though it does not plan to block the global services, the State Communication Security Agency said on Monday. Ethiopia has been engulfed since last year in armed conflict, pitting the federal government against the Tigray People Liberation Front, TPLF, which controls the Tigray region in the country's north. Supporters of both sides have waged parallel war of words on social media. The government wants its local platform to replace Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Zoom. The Director General of the Information Network Security Agency, INSA, Shumete Gizau, said. INSA is like something like CIA in the United States. Shumate accused Facebook of deleting posts and user accounts which he said were disseminating the true reality about Ethiopia. International human rights groups have criticized the Ethiopian government for unexplained shutdowns to social media services, including Facebook and WhatsApp, in the past year. The government has not commented on this shutdown. Facebook's Africa spokesperson, Kaiser Anim Abdo, declined to comment on Ethiopia's plan and didn't respond immediately to query about Shumet's accusation. Ethiopia, a country of about 115 million, has about 6 million Facebook users according to Statista. But in June, days before national elections, Facebook said it had removed a network of fake accounts in Ethiopia targeting domestic users, which it linked to individuals associated with INSA, which is responsible for monitoring telecommunication and the internet. Twitter declined to comment. Zoom didn't immediately reply to a comment request. Shumete declined to specify a timeline, budget, and other details, but told Reuters the rationale behind developing technology with local capacity is clear. Why do you think China is using WeChat? Okay. He said Ethiopia had the local expertise to develop the platforms and would not hire outsiders to help. Social media app WeChat is owned by China headquartered Tencent Holdings, is widely used in the country, and it is considered to be a strong tool by Chinese authorities for monitoring its populations. Shumate also referred Reuters to comments he made on Friday to a local language media outlet in which he accused Facebook of blocking users who were preaching national unity and peace. He also told Al Ain Amharic that authorities were working on the platform to replace Facebook and Twitter, while a trial has already been completed of a platform to replace WhatsApp and Zoom, and that platform will soon be operational. So that is the intention, the plan on part of the Ethiopian government to replace all social media uh, uh, to control, create their own social media and control the population like China. They are following China. So we will see. They say, the trial is already started, and that's a big achievement, but it's not for the good of the country. No, this is only for prosperity party agenda. They do not tolerate opposite views or criticism. So they have, it's not surprising for them to create this. I don't know where they're gonna get the money at this current situation when they are fighting multiple wars, when they are collapsing or squeezing from different directions, from the north and from south and other parts of the country, when the country is, in a bad shape economically, and maybe, as usual, they may be lying. They don't care. Maybe try to divert the attention of Ethiopians, to show the Ethiopians we can create our own Facebook, our own Twitter, our own Zoom, and we will see. But this is very serious. They're very serious, especially when it comes to freedom of expression. You know, from this government, from Abiy Ahmed administration, we already seen the government shutting down internet in Makale or in Oromia region, or whenever there is a protest, they just run to the internet and shut down. And now, that didn't work. So what they have to do, they have to attempt to create their own social media, and Ethiopia will be like China very soon. No freedom of expression, no opposition party at all. That's why they try to create. And the Amaras are with this agenda. The Amaras are happy with this agenda. They have to examine themselves. They will regret later on, after everything is messed up. It's better for them to wake up instead of supporting this dictator. The direction is clear, and the way he's, the dream, the direction of the country, where he want to take Ethiopia. Is it toward freedom, justice, equality? No. He cares about how to control people for the sake of his power. He wants to control every corner of that country: justice system, education, trade, information technology. That's why. So we will see. This is already announced, and we will see how successful they are. If they are successful, that will be the end of democracy and the freedom of expression in that country. They try to only one view. That's a prosperity party view. No challenge. We will see. Okay, this one is about the United States sanctioning the Eritrean chief of staff. Sanctioning Eritrean military leader in connection with human rights abuse in Ethiopia. Press statement, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. The United States is designating the Eritrean Defense Force Chief of Staff, General Philippos Walde Yohannes, or Philippos, for his connection with serious human rights abuse committed during the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia. Philippos is designated pursuant to Executive Order 13818, which builds upon and implements the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act and targets perpetrators of serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world. Philippos commands all of the Eritrean Defense Forces that have committed serious human rights abuses in Ethiopia throughout the conflict. Under Philippos' command, Eritrean Defense Force troops have raped, tortured, and executed civilians in Ethiopia. Internally displaced persons have described a systematic effort by the Eritrean Defense Force to inflict as much harm on the ethnic Tigrayans population as possible in the areas the Eritrean Defense Force controls. Eritrean troops have forcibly displaced civilians and ransacked businesses. IDP spoke of a scorched earth policy intended to prevent civilians from returning home. The United States condemns in the strongest terms human rights violations and abuses in Ethiopia, including those involving the killing, forced removals, and systematic sexual violence. The United States concerns that large number of Eritrean Defense Force have re-entered Ethiopia after withdrawing in June. Prolonged, intensified, and expanded conflict increases the risk of violence against civilians and rights violations. We call upon the Eritrean government to withdraw its military forces immediately and permanently from Ethiopia. At the same time, the United States continued to urge all parties to conflict, including the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, to end abuses against civilians, take steps to de-escalate the conflict, allow for unimpeded humanitarian access, and commit to a negotiated ceasefire. Today's action demonstrates the United States' commitment to promoting accountability for those who abuse human rights and continue to perpetuate the crisis in Ethiopia. The United States will continue to identify and pursue action against those involved in serious human rights abuses in Ethiopia and prolonging the ongoing conflict and the humanitarian crisis. We call on the United Nations Security Council and the wider international community to come together to push for a peaceful resolution of this ongoing conflict. So that is the State Department uh, sanctioning the military chief, the Eritrean military chief, and warning others, we are coming after you for the abuses and for atrocities you committed on Tigrayans. So we will see. I think, yes, Mr. Filipino, General Filipino, the Chief of Staff of Eritrea, is responsible because he is the one with the Eritrean president conducted the war in Tigray in coordination with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. All the abuses, all the atrocities happened against the Tigrayans in this conflict happened because of Isaias Afwerki plus his right hand, this Mr. Filipino. I think we should appreciate the United States for, looking for accountabilities for these guys. But I think the number, should be increased, not only one or two individuals. They should identify the Eritrean side and from Abiy side. I know that they have some visa restriction on Ethiopian officials, but I think that's in general, these sanctions, such type of sanctions should follow up, look for Ethiopians and Eritreans. I think it's not only one guy. Many people involved in this conflict, in this war. Money abuses, conducted several war crimes in Tigray. So that accountability should be widened. Others should be included in this sanction. That's the comment from concerned citizen media. I think it makes sense. We appreciate this, but this is not the only one. More must be done. So Abiy Ahmed and the Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki feel the pain, feel the pressure, and correct their action for the sake of the people, and must be accounted for all the atrocity. Okay. President Kiir of South Sudan rejects calls to step down. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir rejected calls to step down, saying he would remain in the SPLM until his death, like the movement founder John Garang. On Friday, the South Sudanese leader took part in a meeting of the SPLM political bureau where he made his remarks. Comrades of SPLM, people are calling me to leave the power, but I must tell you, I will leave this SPLM's power in the similar way as Dr. John Garang left it. Kiir said on Thursday. Kiir took the leadership of the SPLM after the death of the founding leader of the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement, that's SPLM, and predecessor John Garang de Mabio on 30 July 2005. He took the head of the semi-autonomous authority before becoming the first president of independent South Sudan on 9 July 2011. In 2012, the president came under pressure to step down as a group of SPLM leading members criticized the mismanagement of the country and called for reform. The rift turned into a civil war in December 2013. Nowadays, the historical SPLM is divided into several groups. Some of them hold the same name, like the one headed by his first deputy, Riek Machar. So they got their freedom from Sudan, but they are fighting, even fought civil war. I don't know. They fought for freedom. They got their independence. They have their own country. Now they are fighting. They're supposed to have tolerance and, govern themselves in a very, peaceful manner. But bloodshed happened after they got freedom. That's the problem. And this guy he don't want to give up the power. He don't want to, he will be the office. He will be the office for life. That is a problem. That is the issue. He will not live until he dies, like his predecessor. That mentality should be rejected. And, if the people don't want you, just give up the power. Leave the country for others, If they don't trust you, if you are not managing the country well, if the people think you are not doing good, just like Abiy Ahmed, you know, he is fighting for his power, not for Ethiopians' power. He wants to stay in power as long as he is alive as a kingdom. So this is a problem of Africa, African mentality. Credit for this one is Sudan Tribune. Okay, I think this is the last part for today's reading. 53 U.S. lawmakers warn of Israelis' use of collective punishment in Gaza. This is a troubled region. 53 House Democrats have warned of grim humanitarian situation in Gaza in a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in which they denounced Israel's collective punishment of Palestinians in a besieged enclave and the occupation states' banning of essential materials that are vital to ease Palestinian suffering. The ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza is untenable. The lawmakers wrote in a letter praised by Progressive American Jewish Group, ensuring that Palestinians residing in Gaza receive humanitarian aid is vital to securing the well-being of Gazans 2.1 million residents, the letter continued. Led by Democrat member of Congress Mark Pocan and Debbie Dingell, the latter, which comes 3 months after Israel's 11-day onslaught on the Strip, which killed more than 250 people, including women and children, called for securing change that are vital to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The lawmaker said that Gaza's humanitarian situation has been exacerbated by the recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel and left an estimated 1.3 million Palestinians in need of humanitarian assistance. Unfortunately, the recent Israel air campaign in Gaza has only worsened living conditions, inflicting 380 million in damage to the beleaguered Strip and necessitating 485 million in immediate humanitarian and reconstruction aid, said the letter, referring to a recent report by the UN, the World Bank, and European Union. The letter called on Blinken, Secretary Blinken, to work with Israel and Egypt on issuing clear guidance on materials allowed into Gaza and to review the efficiency of the existing Gaza reconstruction mechanism agreement. With Israel having effective control of Gaza, the occupation state has the ultimate say over what goes in and out of the besieged Strip. It has often been accused of denying essential materials, including basic foods, to punish Palestinians. Decrying the lack of clarity regarding which construction materials are prohibited from entering the Gaza Strips, the lawmaker said that Israel selectively banned materials that it considered having dual use, any item it claimed could have a military application. They highlighted vital materials that have been classified as dual use, such as water, disinfectant, desalination units, and electricity generators. Israel restrictions of Gaza fishing zone to 6 nautical miles was also condemned by lawmakers as a form of collective punishment. Although the restriction was recently reversed, the decision to collectively punish the people of Gaza by unilaterally restricting its fishing zones remains extremely concerning, said the letter, urging Blinken to work with the Israeli government to refrain from such harmful and illegal actions. Wednesday's letter is one of several sent to officials in the Biden administration in recent months, highlighting Israel's aggression against Palestinians. In June, 73 U.S. lawmakers urged President Joe Biden to undo his predecessor's pro-Israel policies. In May, 25 Democratic members of the U.S. House of Representatives sent a letter to Blinken calling on him to pressure Israel to halt the planned forced eviction of Palestinians in occupied East Jerusalem. A month before that, U.S. lawmakers submitted a draft bill to prevent Israel using U.S. tax dollars to target children. Credit Middle East Monitor. So that area, the Israeli tough stance against the Palestinians is very, very tough. It's too much restriction, and for in and out materials. So we, concerned citizens media appreciate the Democrats for speaking on behalf of suffering Palestinians. The Republicans mostly, they are silent on this issue. They are, no matter what, they would stand with Israel. Whatever Israel does in that region, they don't condemn, they don't say anything. So Democrats, on principle or for human rights and other agendas, they are taking it seriously. So even though very tough to do to carry out any action against Israel, it's very tough, very tough. You can be accused of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish. You can lose election in this country. They have so many dominant force, financially, politically, and in other forms. Very tough. That's why they just do, the Israelis do expansion and assassinating, killing Palestinians, going deep into Palestinian territories, because there is no accountability, whether you go to UN or in US system. Even this sending letter asking the Secretary of State to do something is very, very tough, very tough. It could backfire. It could backfire by American voters, by pro-Israeli voters. So that is a challenge. We know this for a long time, why that issue is not settling, why war is coming again and again in that region, because Israel has no one to fear of. No international court, no UN, many resolution ignored, and the United States, they can do. The United States is, giving too much money for Israel. It's number one in the world. Second is Egypt. So Egypt is the same. Very tough, and The Palestinians, they keep losing their ground, they keep suffering, and they are trying to get their own state. Hopefully, if they do that, they will have international protection in that sense. Israeli don't want Palestinians to have their own state. They know the consequences. Okay, that's enough on the reading part. Thank you again. Let's share some videos and finish today's presentation. There you go. There you go. This is an update on current situation in Ethiopia.
Welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So in today's report, covering the ongoing situation inside of the former state of Ethiopia, the fighting continues. We are getting reports of very significant, very heavy fighting taking place along the southern front. The heaviest fighting is occurring in between Weldia and Dese, and then along the number 2 highway, and then we're also seeing significant engagements taking place along the number 22 highway in the vicinity of Gashina down to Debre Zebet. But first we'll start on the reported engagements that are taking place south of Weldia. So apparently a Tigrayan Defense Force unit has engaged forces of the Ethiopian Republican Guard and elements of a Special Forces Commando Brigade of the regular Ethiopian National Army that was also operating with Republican Guard units in the vicinity north of Dese.
When the price is this low,
Okay, there's advertisement.
Now, initial reports are coming in that the Ethiopian units that were engaged with the Tigrayan Defense Forces units south of Wachale have suffered fairly significant losses, and quite possibly we're seeing the makings of a battlefield defeat in the making. We're also hearing reports, again, these are unconfirmed, but it would appear from these reports that elements of the Tigrayan Defense Forces are now very close to Dese. Now, is this some sort of forward reconnaissance unit that migrated its way down after engaging the forces of the Republican Guard and other units of the EDF and the Amhara militia units that were also assisting? We don't know at this point, but we do know the fighting was very significant, and there is information coming in that would suggest the TDF has made its way very close to Dese. Have they entered Dese? We're still unsure of that, but it would appear that an operation did take place in which those units of the TDF that were operating in the vicinity of the area of operations south of Wachale may have proceeded a fairly significant way south. In the operations that are taking place along the 22 highway in the vicinity of Gashina and then other areas, fighting is reported as very heavy, and both sides have taken fairly substantial losses in this fighting. We're hearing really the fighting on the southern front as defined by an area ranging from Debre Tabor down to basically Dese and Weldia, kind of this triangle that runs from Weldia down to Desse and then up all the way towards Debre Tabor. Again, the front lines are not fully stabilized, so we are seeing units that have the capacity of proceeding uh, with different avenues of advance outside of the normal operations of what you would define as a true front line. So again, because the front lines are not very well defined, we are seeing units appear in areas where, generally speaking, you may not see some of those units appear. And I think a classic example of what occurred near Yashina. At the same time, we continue to see the Ethiopian army and the Amhara militias. They seem to have not yet adapted to a certain tactic that is being used by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And that tactic is more or less what I would define as a entice and envelop. And what we're seeing is, let's say, for instance, the Ethiopian army believed that, say, the town of Mersa was weakly defended, and that is the perception, that is the intended perception that the Tigrayan Defense Forces create, and is designed to make the Ethiopian army proceed, attack, attempt to seize control of a town such as, say, Mersa, and at the same time, more powerful units, say to the west and east, then envelop that attacking unit that was enticed to attack a target such as Mersa. And then that unit then quickly becomes enveloped from the east and west, or flanking maneuver, and is then destroyed in zone. And we've seen that used quite a bit in central Tigray. We've seen it in southern Tigray near Korum and Alamata, and we've seen it now in other places as well in the Amhara region. Again, it is the entice and envelop tactic that is being utilized by the Tigrayan Defense Forces that seems to be a challenge for the Ethiopian army and the Amhara militias to adapt to. They seem to, at times, identify a target that they believe they have the capability of taking, and in reality, it is basically a strategic ambush, and on a battalion and a brigade size level at times. And again, we saw that significantly in central Tigray, and it was one of the reasons the Ethiopian military was in fact defeated in central Tigray was for that reason, and that tactic and strategy of entice and envelop. And we will probably continue to see that occur as long as it works for the Tigrayan Defense Forces. We continue to hear that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are still just outside of Debark and looking to pressure that city and possibly at some time seize control of it. And obviously the most heaviest fighting is occurring in the northern part of the Amhara region along that southern front. We're hearing reports and actually seeing documented reports of military equipment coming in from Djibouti. The equipment is painted white. We see trucks and we see BTR 70s and 80s, Russian-made armored vehicles that are painted white with UN identifiers on them. We assume these are vehicles that were utilized possibly in Somalia or other areas where the Ethiopian army was conducting peacekeeping operations. And the situation really is so dire right now. The Ethiopian army is required to pull these vehicles from those areas of operation. You have to understand, a lot of these vehicles were in fact donated and given to the Ethiopian state and the Ethiopian military in support of some of these peacekeeping operations. So it's unclear if this equipment was in fact even purchased by the Ethiopian military, and more likely it was commandeered out of necessity, and it would appear that this equipment has been transferred to serve in operations inside of Ethiopia against the Tigrayan Defense Forces and the allies of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, such as the Oromo Liberation Front. And the fighting also continues with the Oromo Liberation Army, continuing its activity in the western Oromo region and the southern Oromo region. And those operations continue, and it's really playing havoc on the Ethiopian military's ability to focus its operations against the Tigrayan Defense Force and maintain its anaconda strategy of attempting to choke off the Tigray region from the outside world. We are also continuing to receive reports that Amhara regional forces are also, in fact, operating now in the Oromo region and directly supporting the Ethiopians' federal government operations against the Oromo Liberation Army. So we're really starting to see Amhara regional forces enter the Oromo region, and that is going to continue to exacerbate civil strife between the two ethnic groups. More to come in the coming hours and days. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, that's I like this guy. It's
Good afternoon.
very credible.
So let me offer a few updates on the top about Afghanistan, and then happy to take your questions. As you heard this morning, from 3 a.m. on August 22nd to 3 a.m. on August 23rd, 28 U.S. military flights evacuated approximately 10,400 people from Kabul. In addition, 61 coalition aircraft evacuated approximately 5,900 people from Kabul. Since August 14th, the U.S. has evacuated and facilitated the evacuation of approximately 37,000 people. Since the end of last month, the end of July, we have relocated approximately 42,000 people. Here at the department, our employees are working around the clock to help evacuate American citizens. Hundreds of consular officers and locally employed staff members, both here in D.C. and at our embassies around the world, are placing personalized phone calls to U.S. citizens who may be in Afghanistan to determine their whereabouts, collect information that will guide their next steps, and offer them that tailored advice. Our team made several thousand calls over the weekend, and those efforts continue. We're extremely proud of the volunteerism we're seeing across the State Department right now, with hundreds of employees answering the call to serve to help their fellow Americans and our Afghan allies. The telework tools that we have all mastered in the face of a global pandemic mean that we can mobilize our human resources located around the world, and that is just what we've done. So far, officers from the U.S. missions in Mexico, Canada, Brazil, and India are assisting, as well as many consular staff from this building and from throughout the Washington, D.C. region. I want to take a moment and give special thanks to the locally employed staff members who have stepped forward to help with this effort. Many locally employed staff from around the world have volunteered to serve at our embassy in Afghanistan over the years. Now, some are serving in our mission in Afghanistan again, but thousands of miles away in their home countries. As always, U.S. citizens should check the embassy website for the latest updates. We continue to urge Americans and their immediate family members in Afghanistan to utilize what we call the Repatriation Assistance Form on our website to register their interest in departing if they haven't already done so. I also want to provide an update on our global network of transit hubs. The United States wants to sincerely thank the governments of Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Germany, Italy, and Spain for their help in our efforts to safely transit U.S. citizens, at-risk Afghans, and other evacuees from Afghanistan. Germany, Italy, and Spain's armed forces bravely served alongside U.S. troops and other NATO allies in Afghanistan, and they are now continuing to support the Afghan people by collaborating with our ongoing efforts to evacuate Afghans at risk. President Biden and Secretary Blinken have personally expressed our gratitude for their continuous support as friends and allies and for assisting in the temporary transit of Afghans to safety. The temporary transit locations we have established at U.S. or joint bases in Germany, Italy, and Spain have capacity to process at least 15,000 people on a rolling basis, significantly expanding our ability to facilitate the relocation of U.S. citizens and at-risk Afghans from Afghanistan. The first flights from these European transit sites departed from Ramstein Air Base in Germany today. We are grateful to host governments for agreeing to allow the United States to host at-risk Afghans while we make arrangements to relocate them to the United States or to a third country. Our embassies have been working with the U.S. military and our partners in these countries to receive flights and ensure safe transit of passengers to onward destinations. With that, and with that background, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Okay, that's enough the update about the Afghanistan evacuating American citizens plus those Afghans who worked as translators, contractors, and working with other type of job with Americans. So the number is said about 42,000. So how many Americans, how many Afghans is not clear, but that many people evacuated from Afghanistan. So that's encouraging. And at the local level, we are also, according to the information, our city, Selous City and Selous County, also, receiving, welcoming about 2,000 Afghan refugees. We appreciate the concerned citizens media, appreciate the local leaders and the Selous County Executive Director, Dr. Sam Page, and Mayor Tishara Jones for welcoming those refugees. Welcoming them to their new home for the resettlement in Selous, Missouri. Probably they served the American interests. If you leave them there, the Taliban might kill them. So that's encouraging. We got 2,000 other cities and states. They should welcome them into their new homes, let them start a new life. And and I hope the Taliban, as I said before, will change their attitudes to adjust themselves to the 21st century, so they can govern that country in a peaceful manner and make Afghanistan for all Afghans. And when we come to the conclusion, again, the United States should widen the sanctions to include some other names in Ethiopia and Eritrea, not only the General Filipino, Branu Jula, Baj Adabale from Ethiopia side, and others played a major role in this war. They can even should be accounted for lying multiple times to Ethiopians and to the global community, lying after lying, misleading them. In addition to the war crimes and the genocide they conducted, they ordered in that country. And the Amara, really, it's very sad to say that. They just creating chaos in that country. I know they have some kind of agenda. It's not about, Ethiopia day and the night. They have their own agenda. They have the expansionist agenda. They are moving their forces, taking the advantage of the current situation, arming themselves heavily and attacking Wollos, attacking the Oromo in northern part of Shoa, and attacking the Benishangul, and attacking the Kimand and others. This kind of attitude will not take them anywhere. They will not be successful. And if you hear one of the military generals is circulating on the social media, when they talk, even that kind of talk is not fruitful. They're talking about the existence of Amara and attempting to make themselves proud of in that country. How can you gonna be proud of by yourself without others? What is Ethiopia means? Is it about only Amara? Even they don't know what they're talking about. Really. This military general was talking to the new recruits, and I know he's encouraging them to fight to death for Amara's survival. It's not about Ethiopia. Ethiopia is just for just political purpose. The central government message is different. The Amara region message is different. The Amara region is about Amara survival. The central government is about the survival of Ethiopia. Completely different message. So, the Amara statement, the Amara general's statement, speech at these new recruits is very discouraging the feeling of others. If the Oromos, the Sidamas, the Benishangul hear this kind of speech, how they gonna fight with Amara against TDF? How? How they feel? Are they fighting about the dominant, about allowing the Amaras to dominate that country's political platform? It is not about the survival of Amaras, as the central government say. It's about the survival of Ethiopia. But the Amaras are sending a wrong message to Ethiopians. They have to examine themselves. They have to know how to live with others peacefully. They have to, adjust themselves to the 21st reality, 21st century reality. Nobody's accepting the long time attitudes, one culture, one ethnicity dominating the lives of more than what 115 million Ethiopians. No way. Whatever weapons you have, whatever media you own, nobody will be okay with that kind of attitudes. To end the conflict in that country, these people must learn from the mistake they are making. They are creating war and conflict in that country with the help of the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. They must make adjustment before too late. Before too late. Conflict with Oromo, conflict with Command, conflict with Benishangul, conflict with Afar will not be productive. So that's my take. And on Facebook and WhatsApp, all this, if we Ethiopians allow the Prime Minister to do that, that will be the end of democracy in that country. We will be a dictator, especially if the Amaras win this war and control Ethiopia, that will be the end of democracy in that country. So, and the majority of ethnicities in that country, I don't think they will allow this to happen. So that will be the closing for today's updates and comments from Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. Please share, like the video, subscribe to my YouTube so we can share news, you know, and be the voice for the voiceless. Thank you again. I appreciate again your constructive comments and inspiring comment. And I will be back again with other updates and any updates in the coming days. Thank you again. So long, everyone.